good. All right, I'd like to call to order the December 14th Long Hill Township Committee meeting. Ask everybody to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk.
Compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act of New Jersey, adequate notice of this meeting, specifically the time, date, and public call and information were included in the meeting that was electronically sent to the Echo Sentinel and posted on the township website. The agenda and public handouts for this meeting can be viewed online at www.longhillnj.gov. A public comment period will be held in the order it is listed on the meeting agenda. Committeeman Lavender?
Present.
Committeeman Ray?
Present.
Committeeman Roleza?
Present.
Deputy Mayor Paserchia?
Present.
Mayor Dorsey?
Here. All right, welcome everybody. Guys reminded me earlier today, it's like to have a quick moment of silence. Today's the 10-year anniversary of the Sandy Hook shooting, which is another horrible gun-related tragedy in the country. So let's ask for a quick moment of silence in honor of that bad day. Thank you. All right, let's see. First things first, we have an ordinance 506-22. It's a first reading, amending the township code. It's about the registration and maintenance of pending foreclosure properties. Jack, do you want to explain this?
Yes, we've had an ordinance in place for several years which requires banks or mortgage companies who foreclose to maintain the properties that are vacant. The state recently passed a new bill which sets forth some different notice requirements and things of that nature. So I redid the ordinance to comply with the requirements of the state law.
All right, so it's just fixing it to comply, okay, so to comply with the state law, what it is now?
Yes, the brand new, relatively new state law, yes.
All right, so I guess this will be what, motion to, does anybody have anything to discuss with this before we move to the next meeting? All right, seeing none, I got a motion to move this ordinance 506-22, introduce, we can pass it tonight?
No,
No, you're
Oh.
no, it's
introducing.
introduction.
Introduction will be listed on December 28th. So can I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Sure.
Committeeman Lavender?
Yes.
Committeeman Ray?
Yes.
Committeeman Veleza?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Paserchia?
Yes.
Mayor Dorsey?
Yes. All right, the next one is 496-22. This has to deal with the car wash property, so I'll recuse myself and Guy will take over the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll read the ordinance. Ordinance 496-22. This is second reading for adoption. An ordinance permitting additional residential uses in the Valley Business Zone and supplementing and amending a bunch of sections here and there entitled Schedule of Bulk Requirements, Lower Income Housing Requirements, et cetera, et cetera. Jack, would you mind putting this in context? What is it that we are considering?
This ordinance actually changes the bulk standards for a large portion of Valley Road, up and down Valley Road.
And
Setbacks, heights, various things like that.
And also permitted uses, right?
Correct.
so, I mean, I don't know. Scott, we'll start on your side.
Well, you know, I commented on this last time we looked at this, and I'm just not in agreement with, you know, this maximum height change here to 4 stories and 55. I know there's a number of residents that are not nuts about that. I certainly am not. And I'm to make such a sweeping change to that district just seems antithetical to where we want to take this town.
Thank you, Scott. Vic?
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I'm not really prepared to rezone that entire stretch of Valley Road. It's a crucial piece of property aesthetically, and you know, to open it up to 4 stories is concerning to me.
Thank you, Vic. Brendan?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm in agreement. The whole Valley Road district has kind of been in a state of flux at the planning board, and yeah, I tend to agree that the changes here are probably not necessarily in agreement with the rest of the planning board, and I'd like to see we're kind of rushing this, and I'd like to see this in the context of the master plan. And so I'm certainly not inclined to agree with this.
Thank you, Brendan, and I think the three of you have expressed my opinion as well. So, Jack, I mean, at this point, what are our options? Can we take a
Based
vote?
on that consensus, somebody should move to turn the ordinance down and reject the ordinance. So, it's-
Okay, so
so
looking
yes
from,
vote,
Well,
if somebody makes that motion, yes.
Do we have comments from the public, though?
You can.
Before we,
I want to make sure about that, since we're voting it down. How does it work? Second reading, typically, if it's going to be voted on,
Typically, when it's been voted down, there've been no comments. But you can allow comments if you wish.
I don't have a problem
I think Chuck wants to comment.
with comments at all. But honestly, I.
before we vote then.
Let's hear what
If we're
the
gonna
public has
have
to say.
public
Maybe there's a
comment
different
before we
opinion.
vote.
Maybe we could be swayed.
Yes.
All right,
So open the public hearing.
At this point, I'd like to open up to the public comments on this ordinance and this ordinance alone. I think the sentiments and the opinions of this committee are clear, but keep that in context when you approach the microphone. Please state your name and address, please.
Charles Aronowitz, Millington, New Jersey, Heritage Road. This has been going on for 6-7 months. One question to think about, as Commissioner Ray said, should this ordinance be part of the master plan, or are we continuing to piecemeal the direction of Long Hill Township? The planning board on October 11th, 2022 voted 5-1 to reject the 4 stories and 55 feet height in buildings in this proposed ordinance and recommended 3 stories and 45 feet. Township Planner Jessica Caldwell on October 25th, 2022, in her report recommended 3 stories and 45 feet. I'm feeling you're going to follow the recommendations from your experts on building heights and number of stories. However, I do fully support the use of Valley Road for assisted living, nursing homes, and continuing care, but I do not support the building height, number of stories, and density per acre. As I mentioned before, Superior Court Judge Michael Hubner, from the hearing of Long Hill Township's Fair Share Housing Settlement on December 15, 2017, would welcome the fact that Long Hill is seeking input from the residents for the first time on where to place fair share housing. Thank you for that, because I mentioned that to the judge on that day. The one issue you hadn't discussed tonight is densities, units per acre. On your watch, you have the 2nd to 4th highest densities in Long Hill Township. Rocker Property, 12.83. Gillette Crossings, Elite Properties, 12.04 units per acre. And Tifa Prism, 11.76. In Ordinance 49622, you are proposing 15 units an acre. This will be the highest density in this township. I recommend that this proposed ordinance be returned to not to exceed 5 units per acre as currently in Land Use Section 124.1. Apartments in your business zone. I ask for your support in voting the height down or deferring it, and in particular, the densities.
Thank you.
15 units an acre.
Thank you.
That's a high number, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so, any other member of the public?
Joe Ferrandino, 623 Chestnut Street. After watching properties in this neighborhood stay abandoned and run down for years and years and years. I would prefer to see something built on that property. I don't know nothing about land ordinance or rules and regulations and whatnot, but Spring Ridge is not for, Spring Ridge, is that the senior center's home in Berkeley Heights, Burnsville? Assisted living, across from the bagel shop, UPS store.
We're talking Berkeley Heights or Bernards Township?
What's it called? Sunrise, okay.
Across from
That's
Dewey
not
Meadows.
3 stories high. It is? Okay, so 3 stories high. The property for the car wash compared to that property.
This, if I may interject, Joe, this ordinance does not affect the car wash because it's an area in need of redevelopment, so it's got a separate redevelopment agreement.
So we're not talking about building something on the property for the car wash?
This ordinance will not affect the car wash.
No, I'm saying I want to see that car wash stay abandoned. It's like an eyesore. I would rather see a building built, but not 4 stories high and all of these additional, you say they're not going to have vehicles and whatnot. I know they're not going to have children in the school because it's a senior center, but if the other one could do it in 3 stories, what's the land, the footprint of the land in that spot compared to the one that's in, is it Berkeley Heights or Bernardsville?
Greenwich Township.
Bernards Township? That seems like a nice facility, caters to the people there. I've been in it, I knew people that were in it. Why can't we go with something like that, rather than leave that lot vacant? And the other thing I'm concerned about was, if you passed that 4 stories for that lot, right, that changes the whole rules for anybody else?
Which lot are we referring to now?
I don't know, I thought we were talking about the car wash.
No.
Where are you looking to build this then?
No, that's not what we're talking about for this particular ordinance.
All right, so where is the property that's gonna be built 4 stories high?
No, this ordinance refers to the entire Valley Road Business District, so I don't know the exact
Okay.
delineations
From like
of that.
ShopRite to Valley Mall.
Okay, so if somebody in the Valley Mall decides they can't put a store in that big place where, what was it, Whole Foods or King's?
Kings.
They decide they want to put up a Trump-style skyrise building. No?
No.
That's not going to change this year.
This ordinance would change it.
This ordinance
Put a
would,
4-story building there.
yes.
This ordinance would change it
allow
if
that,
this
yes.
committee
If-
approves it.
if we
Yeah, I
approved
think
it.
that'd be a detriment to this whole town. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
You're a taxpayer in Long Hill Township. The mic is yours, but please state your name and address for the record.
David Hans, 48 Wandering Way, Stirling. Member of the planning board, so just want to echo. So this, I'm thankful you guys are saying no. I'm a little bit distressed it even got to this point. I don't like the process, how it arrived here, so I want to make that point. But thankful that you will rescind this, the way I'm understanding it, and we will put it to one side. Planning board, maybe we will look, I absolutely agree with Brendan. We originally discussed this about 6, 8, 9 months ago, and we said at the time, too early to think about it. Let's think about it after the planning board. We know things need to be changed on in the business district, and I don't think it includes the Gillette, because that's a shopping zone, it's not part of the BD. So thankful that you're going to do it, just reiterating that it's obviously always sensitive to the need to redevelop sensibly along Valley Road and the BD. And my one little point of reference is, when you think of the similar zoning along Berkeley Heights, you're talking about 3 stories, 36 feet. And we were jumping quickly to 4 stories and 55 feet blanketly down in the business district. So a little bit distressed me that we got to this point. When the planning board discussed it, we said, let's put it to one side. And it wasn't presented on behalf of the planning board. So again, thank you for my bigger speech I need not worry about, but thank you for hopefully what you're going to do right there.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Good evening. Donna Fucci, Mercer Street in Sterling. I tend to agree with Committeeman Lavender, Valetza, and Ray on this point. Lived in this town for over 60 years, And I'm watching how like surrounding towns are getting swallowed up by these big developments, and it's really like ruining the area. I mean, just in particular, especially over in Warren, I don't know if anybody's familiar with all the building that's going on over there. Now they're, looking to do more building on Wagner Farm. I mean, it's getting to a point where they're almost trying to take all the countryside away from us here. I would think anything over 4 stories would definitely be a detriment. I'm all for housing for seniors, et cetera, and assisted living to some degree. There's several senior assisted living places, local enough, where I don't know if we actually need an assisted living, or, to me, it would make more sense to have a place more like another Lounsbury, where you would be able to have a place where average people, average elderly people can afford to live. Most of these places, and I've been to a couple of them with a friend of mine not too long ago, because they were looking for like a place like the Chelsea for their parents. I mean, $6,000 a month is a hard chunk to chew for anybody that doesn't have that kind of money. We have a lot of, like some of the other people had said, we have a lot of places on Valley Road that make this town look like a mess coming through here. And even though Main Street is like the main street, and by the way, it looks quite beautiful now, Valley Road is the road that's traveled the most by people coming through this town, and it looks like, to put it kindly, a dump. So I think that there's a lot that needs to be addressed there as well. And the fact that, we've had flooding in the past, et cetera, there's considerations there. But definitely anything over or 4 stories and up would be just, it would be really unsightly for the town, and it would just take away from the charm of what is Long Hill. That's all I got to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're still open to the public on this ordinance.
There is somebody on Zoom.
Okay, but what we'll do is everyone who is here in person, and then we'll go to the
Perfect.
virtual.
How you doing? Mark DeGiovanni, Heritage Road. Just a couple questions. In terms of this 4-story, was there a study done, or is it specific to this property here that living facility, the senior facility, would require 4 stories?
This is for the, well, I'm sorry, Brendan, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
This is for the entire business.
I get what, okay, so,
I can understand why
Yeah.
the public is a little confused on this. Maybe it was my fault.
Yeah,
for not
help me understand.
Pointing it out. The car wash is a completely different situation. Those owners applied for a redevelopment agreement with the town, which was granted. That is a separate issue, which we will talk about later this evening.
Okay.
This particular ordinance is about rezoning Valley Road, I think, from Valley Mall, from right out here
Okay.
to ShopRite and beyond, actually to Main Avenue, I would think. I don't know the exact delineation.
All right.
But it would be about rezoning the entire.
that whole area, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Even
all
though
right,
it-
thank you for clarifying
Even
that.
though it includes that piece of property,
hold on.
it doesn't include it.
The Valley Business District,
Yes,
Overrides the.
Valley Business District runs from Main Avenue to Morristown Road.
The whole thing, okay, so there you go.
So with that being said then, okay, thanks for clarifying that, because I was confused on that. So I guess the question is, what is the intended outcome that 4 stories will now provide this town? What is the benefit? What's the study behind this that says changing the ordinance to 4 stories is going to benefit the people
I think
of
we're
this
getting
town?
ahead of ourselves.
Well, I mean, if you're going to
the
change an
sentiment-
ordinance,
No, we're
That's
gonna
something
vote
for the
down.
planning board. I think the sentiment
Okay.
of this committee is clear. This is going to be turned down.
okay.
So we are
just-
not considering 4 stories.
All right, okay. I want to see, I didn't know why we were considering it. That seems a lot to me compared to where we are now. And I just want to know what was the impetus and why was that being supported? But thank you. Okay, yeah, my questions were answered.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much.
Thank you.
We have somebody from the public still here before we go virtual.
Evening all. Tom Groskoff, Gillette. I would like to thank you for not wanting a 4-story building in this town. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Groskopf.
Thank you, Tom.
That was Tom Groskopf. What's your address? You didn't state it for the public, did you? Gillette, okay. Is that good enough? Okay.
Anybody else in the room? No. All right, so Megan, could we go virtual?
There's a Mary Ann Noonan that would like to talk.
Hi, Megan, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank all of you with reference to the agreements, and I do appreciate and I do share everyone's sentiments with regards to putting this ordinance through and saying no to it. We're fully aware that the planning committee right now is working on the master plan, which is a 10-year plan. And my biggest fear is that until that master plan is completed, these ordinances can possibly open a major can of worms for our township with regards to anything, whether it be an area in need of redevelopment or anything coming from Fair Share Housing Center and our municipal courts. And I want to thank you, truly thank you for knocking this ordinance down. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Megan?
There's a Gary Pratt that would like to speak.
Gary, go ahead, please.
Sorry, hold on.
Okay, I'd like to also say that I want to thank the committee for deciding to not pass this resolution. But I am concerned, as one of the other speakers started to ask, I would like to understand what was behind, what the thought process was behind the original plan to make this change. You know, I'm sure that significant expense was incurred by the township planner, by the township attorney, and everyone else. And so, you know, it would be helpful to me, and I'm sure others, that again, I don't want to take away from the fact that you've decided to not pass it. I'm thrilled with that. But I'd like to understand, why was the ordinance going to be changed in the first place? Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. I think your question is better directed to the planning board. I don't know if Brendan, you would like to?
Yeah, I mean, Gary, thanks. I get your concern, but the ordinance actually was written by the chairman of the planning board, Mr. Dennis Sandow, and he's here this evening. And so there wasn't such an expense that was generated as there would be with an ordinance being written de novo. And certainly, you know, I think it was. I think we have to, you know, perhaps put a stake in the ground somewhere and start everybody thinking. And I think this ordinance has actually done that. And it's given the planning board a lot of food for thought as we move into the master plan discussions. And so, you know, there wasn't, just to answer your question, there wasn't a lot of expense associated with this because it was written by a volunteer who's the chairman of the planning board. And I think it's, you know, as I say, it's useful to put a stake in the ground here and start everybody's thought processes working, especially as we're contemplating the master plan.
Thank you, Brendan. Gary, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
We generally don't allow a second bite at the apple, Mr.
I
Hans.
just want to make sure it's clear that was not a planning board directed ordinance. I
It was
said
clear the
earlier,
first
I
time.
want to be 100% clear on that fact.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, why don't we take the vote first?
Oh, geez, Louise, yes. I'm looking for a motion. I think I know what the
So the
motion is.
motion will be to turn down the ordinance, and a yes vote will mean you're rejecting it.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Well, what Jack said.
Okay, that's
So
fine.
they're
Yes
rejecting
means no.
ordinance 496, and then if they're voting yes, it means they're rejecting it.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
A yes vote is no vote.
Committeeman Lavender,
Yes.
Committeeman Ray,
Yes.
Committeeman Veleza,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Paserchia,
Yes.
and Mayor Dorsey's abstaining.
All right, so I think Nancy has gone back to get the mayor. Hopefully, he's, hasn't turned on the Seton Hall game. And for those who want to know, Seton Hall is up 31-16 and a half. Sorry, I had to look. I have season tickets, so I'm missing the games.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, no problem. All right, so where are we now?
The
We're up
firearms
to-
ordinance.
All right, we are up to now,
Liaison.
oh, no, firearms ordinance.
Oh, no, sorry, I skipped
Oh,
ahead.
no, we have two. We have,
I'm sorry.
no, we have a thing at the Knoll. Hold on. Oh, yeah, discharge of firearms.
Yeah, that's fine.
We're up to 504-22.
Correct.
Prohibiting producing discharge of firearms anywhere in the township. Now, Jack, I know there were comments, and there were some changes made. I know there were concerns about people with Nerf guns and/or pellet, like airsoft guns.
Yes, Mayor. Based on the discussion at the last meeting, I've narrowed the scope of the definition of a firearm. The definition in the initial version of the ordinance was from the state statute, but it was in fact overly broad for our purposes. So I've narrowed that definition now so it means the common understanding of what a firearm is. I took out a lot of the surplus language. So the new definition is, and none of this is new, I just deleted other sections. Firearm means any handgun, rifle, shotgun, machine gun, automatic or semi-automatic rifle, or any gun, device, or instrument in the nature of a weapon from which may be fired or ejected any solid projectile ball, slug, pellet, missile, or bullet by means of a cartridge or shell, or by the action of an explosive or the igniting of flammable or explosive substances. So I think that definition should allay the concerns of members of the Township Committee as well as members of the public. Now, there was one other suggestion from a resident who suggested that we remove the definition of the core area of town where firearms are not permitted, the discharge of firearms is not permitted at all. But my recommendation is we leave that in there for several reasons. One is that it's been in there since 1984 and has worked well. The second one is, the resident pointed out that this is already covered by state hunting regulations, but I think we should have it in the township code so people who don't hunt can have access to it and know where to find it. So, like I said, it's worked since 1984. You know, it is kind of complicated, but it's like a meets and bounds description. You know, it goes from street A to street B, and I don't know of any other way to describe it. So if you agree with those changes, then I would, by motion, amend the ordinance to narrow the scope of the definition of firearm. But I think it's not a substantive change, so I think you could still adopt the ordinance this evening.
Well, you do have the change here to the firearm definition.
Correct.
Right.
But it wasn't there on introduction.
Right.
That was made after the
Correct.
introduction meeting.
Right.
And Jack, that particular section only applies to hunters, right? I mean, it doesn't apply to everybody for the discharge of a weapon,
That's correct.
right? It's only people who are hunting.
Well, it's all the people named, law enforcement officers, things like that, as the exceptions to the ordinance, correct?
But a police officer can discharge a weapon.
Right.
If needed, yeah, but only if you're hunting.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions for Jack from us? All right, seeing none, I'll open up to the public for anybody with comments or questions regarding this ordinance, specific
Jack,
ordinance.
Why don't we do the motion first?
Yeah.
Oh,
And then
okay.
open the public hearing, the ordinance
That's
as
fine.
amended.
All right, so motion to amend the ordinance based on suggestions that Jack just named.
So moved.
Second.
And you can do a voice vote on that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, now we can open up to the public.
Yes.
All right, so anybody from the public have any questions or comments regarding this specific ordinance only?
Pamela Ogens, the Crescent in Millington. If you would refer to 3-7.3 exceptions, exception J. And my question is this: if hunting on a tract of land in excess of 5 acres, as stated in the ordinance, how do you keep bullets from coming into neighboring properties, i.e., the next door neighbor?
There are state hunting regulations that prohibit the discharge of a weapon within 450 feet of a house or across public roads. And that has been in the ordinance since 1979 or whenever it was first adopted.
So that would apply also to this exception J?
Correct.
May I suggest that that be repeated in section J? Because as you read it now, it looks like you can use a firearm on 5 acres of private property anywhere. And as you all are aware, bullets don't know boundaries, and even a .22 caliber will travel almost a mile. So 450 feet is better than nothing. I don't know that it'll prevent bullets from flying into neighbors' property.
It's already up in section
I know it's with schools and,
L1,
yeah.
which is verbatim from the existing ordinance.
It's also in the state statute.
That's correct.
My next question, I would still want to see it put in for exception J, but I'm not going to belabor that point. Also referring to 3-7.1 exceptions under J. This is talking about private property, 5 acres. Can you hunt out of season on said property?
Hunting is still regulated by state law and state regulations, so this ordinance only has to do with the discharge of firearms. The state has preempted all hunting regulations.
So, and even in that 5 acres, because nowhere could I find in the state statute anything about 5 acres.
I think farmers can shoot on their own property. I'm not conversant in state hunting regulations, but my understanding is that farmers have the right to shoot varmints.
It doesn't state 5 acres, so I read the statute, and it does state farmers are included in the exemption. But here we're, and correct me if I'm wrong, the way I read this ordinance, any property owner outside of the restricted areas as noted on 5 acres or more can fire any firearm.
To hunt during hunting season, subject to the 450-foot restriction, yes.
Okay, so, but do they have to have a hunting license?
Yes, and as I say, that's regulated by the state. They can't hunt.
As it reads now, again, it doesn't seem obvious for that 5 acres, since there's nothing in the statute about 5 acres, but if it's covered, it's covered. Referring to 3-7.3 in the exceptions under K, refers to the legal definition of pests. Where can this legal definition be found? And where can
in the
that?
hunting regulations.
So there's hunting regulations
There's
where it
hunting
can.
regulations, yes.
Okay. So I could find that in state statute?
State and New Jersey Administrative Code, or if you go to the state website.
Hunting regs, okay. And my question under that same exception K, is shooting an effective form of pest management versus traps and poison? Have we consulted with farmers? How many farmers do we have in Long Hill Township? Is shooting really an effective pest management option?
Yeah, again, the township has limited jurisdiction here. This ordinance only controls the discharge of firearms. All of those other things are regulated by the state.
I couldn't find anything in the statute that refers to the shooting of pests. I'm not sure why that's in there. It's not in the state statute. Were farmers consulted? Were they asking you to put this in there? I'm not sure where this originated, and I'm not sure why it's there.
Jack, was this in the original?
Yes.
Yeah. It's been here for how many years?
Oh, no, this is not in existing.
You put in the exceptions.
I put in the exceptions that I got from other town ordinances.
Got it, okay, thank you.
From other town ordinances, did we
Correct.
find it? I looked at 6 town ordinances with firearms, and I could not find reference to this specifically.
I probably read 25 of them. I think this may have come from West Windsor. I tried
West Windsor.
I tried to get the most comprehensive list, just so that we wouldn't get tripped up by not having one of the exceptions that's required.
Okay, I looked at the ones that I felt were most similar to Long Hill Township, i.e. Bernardsville, and there's no such mention, so I would like you to reconsider removing that exception for using firearms for pest management versus more conventional effective methods.
I always start in surrounding towns, but under General Code's website, I have the ability to do a statewide, countywide search. So
Right.
there weren't any local ones that had.
Well, I did a search under Morris County, and then I extended to Somerset into Bernardsville
Right.
and searched for pests, and there was no mention. So bearing that in mind, similar town within and outside of the county, it eludes me why we even need that. Just general questions. Do we have any idea of the number of Long Hill Township residents who hunt outside of the Great Swamp where it's permissible during season?
No idea what that would be.
So what prompted the 5 acres? Did residents approach you and ask for that to be put in?
No, but I think it makes some sense to have some size restriction on the property where it's permitted. But 5 acres didn't seem unreasonable to me as I went through this.
Well, I do refer back to exception J, and how do you keep bullets from entering the neighboring properties? And why 5 acres? Why not 3 acres? Why not no acres if you're saying it's all dependent on the 450 feet?
Well, there are a number of different restrictions, but I suspect the 5 acres came because that's the minimum for farmland assessment.
For,
Almost every
excuse me,
farmland.
it's the minimum for what?
Farmland assessment for tax
Yes,
purposes.
it is.
Jack, correct me if
Yes.
I'm wrong, I mean, hunting in New Jersey is limited to shotguns, right? No? You can shoot with a rifle?
Yes, of course.
I didn't hear that.
Yes, yeah, you can use rifles.
That's
Bow
what
and
I'm
arrows.
You can only use shotguns in New Jersey?
Yeah, just
Oh, there you go.
shotguns. So shotgun's a short-range instrument, so the 5 acres makes sense.
Shotguns, I do have a reference, but I think it's still more than a mile that shotgun will.
That's even shorter.
No, it's shorter. You're right. It is shorter than a mile. I don't know by how much, but I would have to research that.
But all of this was permitted, has been permitted forever in the township. The whole purpose of this was to prevent private shooting ranges.
And I appreciate that, but it still is taking verbiage from 1984, 86. Now granted, you made the change from the 1974, but most of this is still what was in the 1980 something, the 1984. So maybe this is the time to really updated, not just the firing range and the prohibiting firing ranges. It's still a 40-plus-year-old, 38-year-old ordinance. So maybe we need to revamp it a little bit more before we approve it and look at these things. I wondered if we're not asking residents and we're not acting on residents' concerns, could we create a situation like that, which occurred with the firing range, where the township committee was unaware of what the residents' opinion was on the issue until in 48 hours there were more than 300 signatures on a petition about the firing range. So maybe we need to look into it a little bit more before we accept it tonight.
Give you extended time to anything else that's important?
Excuse me?
I said you've used your 3 minutes and more, so.
I thought 3 minutes is only an open comment.
No.
May I have one more minute?
I'll give you 1 more minute, yes.
Has the police chief acting reviewed this ordinance? No. Okay, so we are ready to accept firearms directly. We refer to our police department for enforcement, and our acting chief of police has not reviewed this ordinance?
The officer in charge and any person in charge of a law enforcement agency doesn't review state ordinances on a regular basis or regular ordinances on a regular basis.
This affects them directly.
It affects everybody in town directly.
But all
My point exactly. Let's get the opinion of the people of the town.
the discharge of firearms was permitted everywhere in town except for that core area before. The only thing new are the exceptions,
Right, the
which narrows the scope
J
of
and
what was
K.
permitted before.
I still think we should review the whole thing, and I personally feel that this affects the police department, and it should at least have input regardless of legalese
Thank you, Ms.
that says it doesn't have to be, excuse me, I think I was still speaking and you gave me permission for 1 minute. My apology if I exceeded my 60 seconds.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Herman Kurz. I own 4 acres on White Bridge Road. Just to clarify some of the questions. One, you're concerned about bullets flying over property lines. It'd probably be a good idea to make a recommendation to hunt from a tree stand, elevated platform, shooting down. The question about farmers do need permits to get rid of, the terminology used were pests, but it's usually for deer when they're ruining crops and stuff like that. They do need a permit from the state in order to do that. So anyway, I reached out to the town a couple times this week. I was referred to the website. I know there were exceptions. So this is going to be very specific to my property. This property has been in my family for over 50 years. I bought it out of my uncle's estate about 17 years ago when he passed away. It's completely surrounded by the Great Swamp. One side is White Bridge Road with the swamp on the other side. Unlike most of the town, this has become less densely populated in the past 10 years because of homes that have been removed. And it's bordered by the swamp, the refuge, but also, I guess, I learned tonight, the old concrete plant, the building, where they use for maintenance equipment and so forth. So there's actually a portion of my property that I cannot hunt because it's within 450 feet. So my question is, the property was actually hunted today. You know, if this ordinance is passed, does that make it illegal tomorrow to hunt this property?
I have no objection to lowering that number. As I say, I took it from another ordinance, but hearing from somebody who has to live with it, I mean, it may make sense to be 3 acres.
So also, this property does not have any structures, my property, completely wooded. I'm very familiar with the farm assessment because I have another property in Harding that is farm assessed. Typically, it's 5 acres, but if there are any structures or so forth, you need additional acres, you need 5
You have to
vacant.
carve out the homestead, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So I also lease the property to a hunter, so I'd lose a source of revenue. And just to give you a gauge, I would say, to my knowledge, the past 5 years, maybe a firearm was discharged 3 times in 5 years during turkey season in the spring. So it's not like it's a shooting range. It's not like, you know, people are shooting every single day. It's hunted a bit, but very rarely is someone discharging a firearm. So, you know, I'm against kind of that 5 acre. I think it should be specific to where you are and whether it's a safe hunting property. Let me just see if I have all my points. I don't know, you guys have any feelings? Would you consider lowering the
I'm
acreage?
not a hunter, so-
I'd be inclined that we kind of take L back to the drawing board based on what he's saying. I think that would be fair.
I do also.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we can, thank you, Mr. Kurz.
Thank you.
So we can take out in excess of 5 acres and see, I mean, we can always go back and amend this if need be.
Say that again, Jack?
Well, we need some, if we don't have that exception in there, I think we should just lower the number of acres.
I think I heard you say 3 acres.
Well, that, you know, I'm not a hunter, but it seems to me to be, 3 acres would be a reasonable number. Like I said, if it doesn't work, we can always change it.
My question is if we lower it to 3 acres, does that make it too easy to start discharging firearms? Because you only need 3 acres.
Well, before we make a decision here, why don't we keep listening?
Yes.
Can I just finish since it was addressing? To me, it would make sense, put some language in that says adequate acreage, because you could have 10 acres, but if you're surrounded by houses, it's not appropriate for hunting, but you could have 1 acre surrounded by the Great Swamp, and it would be adequate for hunting.
Yeah.
So that would just be my suggestion, some type of verbiage along those lines.
Thank you.
The problem is the language of the ordinance can't be too vague, or else we can't enforce it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the issue.
We're gonna have to think.
I'm open to suggestions.
Skeeter Keelblock, Hillview Farms. If you wanted to know what a farmer needs to do to get a crop, you should have asked a farmer. Jack, you and I went back and forth on this in 1984.
We did.
And you specifically put in that ordinance in defense of life and or property. I would love to see that put back in this amendment. Because as you know, Hillview Farms, Guy, I'm in the center corridor, and realistically, I should have not shot 2 squirrels this morning. Right? But I have 27 acres.
We do have that in there, Skeeter. Persons lawfully using firearms in the protection of their person or property for self-defense. I guess we could take a, you're saying not just for self-defense, you're saying?
In defense of life or property. Because we know we have a deer problem, we know we have a raccoon problem, we know we're working on a bear problem, possums. Add them all up, and that's what we're fighting. And I appreciate what the lady said before about pests. For me, pests are insects, diseases, and animals that are trying to take my livelihood. So I consider a deer a hoof rat. I don't even hunt them anymore. It's just, anyway.
So if we took out for self-defense in exception D, would that, so it just said persons lawfully using firearms in protection of their person or property?
Life or property. I think that's how it was. I didn't go back into the old notes.
What about the acreage?
I think you were right. I think the 5 acre thing came about because farmland assessment is based on 5 acres. But people that don't farm also have 5 acres, 10 acres. This man has 4 acres.
4 acres, right.
And he's surrounded by the Great Swamp. The only way he could get in trouble is shooting across the road, which he's not going to do. I think the 450 feet really
Covers that?
defines,
Yeah.
and that's
Okay.
why it was moved from 300 to 450. That was years ago.
So you think we could take out that whole section J?
No, leave it in. Leave it in.
What about the 5 acres though?
I think the 5, it's going to be so subjective because every piece of property is different. I think the 450 feet defines where you can hunt and where you cannot hunt.
So based on that, I think we should take it out, because otherwise,
Yeah.
I mean, as Vic was
I
saying,
tend to agree.
it's 3 acres, it's an acre, where do we,
Yeah.
we have no real basis for doing that, so if we take it out and have the 450, I think that pretty much does it.
Yep. And that's already covered. Okay, thanks, Skeeter.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
you, Skeeter.
Yeah, I just had that other problem with most of the farm being in the center corridor. So I want to be sure that I can discharge a firearm in defense of life or property.
Because I think you helped write this description of the center corridor.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And
Thank
you guys
you.
are doing a great job.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
I'm still Joe Ferrandino from 623 Chestnut Street, and I have a comment. Please correct me if I'm wrong. This entire ordinance was brought up because a resident in Long Hill Township wanted to put a gun range in his yard, correct?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay, so none of this was a problem, 50 acres, 4 acres, cross the, none of this was a problem at all until that was brought up. My opinion is the government that governs least governs best, and because this was brought up, it was already shot down. There is no gun range happening on so-and-so's property. But now, a whole slew of new amended rules and regulations are going to reduce the freedoms of people who want to just keep their property vermin-free and hunt and feed their family. Again, government overreach. There's no need for any of this. The man rescinded his request for the gun range. Whatever rules and regulations were in place. Up until then, I lived in this town 32 years, nobody's ever been caught with a stray bullet through their window. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I would say leave everything alone, move on to the next important factor, like what's going on with our chief of police. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
So I would, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tom.
Tom Grosskopf, still from Gillette. I'm very happy with the changes, many of the changes that were made from the first draft to this draft. And I'm looking at one thing, well, perhaps to Joe's point, if we're gonna do a law, and it's based on a gun range, I don't see anything in here that talks about a shooting range. Let's bar them. Flat out, unequivocally, simple wording, done. The second point is in definitions, which has changed, and I'm very glad to hear it. It talks about any ejected solid projectable ball. A BB would be a solid projectable ball. Now, if it's an air-powered rifle, that would now be legal. It wasn't under the first draft.
Correct.
BB guns are generally non-lethal toys. In the wrong hands, used the wrong way, yes, Ralphie, you can shoot your eye out. And Ralphie still wants his Red Ryder BB gun. So is there any way to include BB guns in here? Because a 14-year-old boy or girl going into the woods with no one around, shooting at tin cans, shouldn't be subject to a misdemeanor. We all grew up, we all had fun. Life was different back then, and I liked it. And the kids today should have the same fun. Anybody who shoots their friend in the eye, that's going to be more than a misdemeanor. And the punishment will be meted out at that time.
Forgive my ignorance, aren't BB guns air-powered?
Some of them are spring.
But they
Well,
are,
spring. This just covers by action of an explosive or the igniting of flammable or explosive substances. So I think a BB gun would already be excluded from the definition.
but it talks about firearm, means any handgun, rifle, shotgun, and a BB gun rifle, right? Machine gun, automatic or semi-automatic rifle, or any gun, device, or instrument in the nature of a weapon from which may be fired or ejected any solid projectable ball. Without reading any further,
No, you have to
Yeah, but
read
you have to
that.
read, you have to read it in context.
By the explosive or igniting of flammable explosive substance. So if it's a pump and a spring, that doesn't explode, so it's fine.
okay.
Yeah, I think it's already covered. Thank you, though.
And if it's, so it's air-powered, it's good.
Not covered.
Kids can still be kids.
Yes.
Correct.
I like it, thank you.
Thank you.
So,
And it's on the record, so.
It is. we
so
can-
now I have a question, then, under this ordinance, let's say I have a squirrel problem in my yard, and I want to shoot it with a BB gun off my deck. Are you allowed to do that?
As long as you're not violating any hunting regulations, yeah.
Okay.
Megan, is there anybody on Zoom that wants to comment on this?
If there's anybody on Zoom that would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand now.
Anyone?
I don't see anyone, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, so,
Just one thing, Matt.
Go
I
ahead.
mean, just, given the discussion that's taking place here, I'm a little bit confused as to what we're voting on here, and could we redraft it?
I was just suggest that we move to amend the following amendments and then carry it to the last meeting of the year.
Okay.
Under 3-7.3 exceptions, paragraph D, everything after person or property would be removed. For self-defense, NJSA 2C would be deleted. Paragraph J would be deleted in its entirety. And as noted earlier, the definition of firearm is narrow in scope. I think that covers all of the comments this evening. But I do think we should continue the public hearing
Yep.
on the ordinances
I feel
amended
that way
since we
too.
made those additional changes.
Yep.
that's where we're going, okay.
So if you all agree, then the motion would be to amend paragraph D by deleting for self-defense, deleting paragraph J in its entirety, and as I said earlier, adopting the new narrow definition of firearm.
Well, they already adopted that.
Yeah,
one.
right. And the motion would be then to continue the hearing on the motion as amended until the December 28th meeting.
Just one thing, as I'm thinking about the discussion about BB guns, and aren't they considered firearms in New Jersey?
They are under state law, but,
Right.
so this,
Does that create an issue here because they're subject to all the firearm?
They would preempt us in theory.
yeah, they would preempt us. The only thing this does is prevent the discharge of firearms by local ordinance. As I said, we have very limited jurisdiction. If you violate the state criminal law, you're still gonna be,
Okay. So I'm just thinking about Tom and the children taking one another's eyes out.
yeah. We're not giving carte blanche for
That's
people to
okay.
shoot BB guns. We're just saying it's not covered by this ordinance.
Okay, thanks.
Does it make sense, though, to add anywhere the outright ban of, any type of shooting ranges on your houses and just kind of cut to the chase, as Tom suggested?
Well, it's not included in the exceptions. So before it was specifically permitted with the permission of the township committee. So, we can get too complicated if you try to put too much into an ordinance then.
Okay.
So I think we're better off as I say, if it presents a problem, we can amend.
Okay.
We're reinventing the wheel here.
All right, so then we're voting on the amendments and then to table it to the 28th, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay.
And Megan will publish notice of the amendment.
Perfect. Okay, so all in favor of voting for the amendments tonight, table this to the 28th for the final vote. Let's
Make-
do,
Do we have to,
Motion,
yes.
Yes.
motion?
Second.
Committeeman Lavender,
Yes.
Committeeman Ray,
Yes.
Committeeman Verleza.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Paserchio.
Yes.
Mayor Dorsey.
Yes. All right, I think this is the final ordinance, which is 505-22. This one allows the police to have police powers in the knoll over at Millington. Is that correct, Jack?
Yeah, the knoll, Stonehenge was a private road at one point in time, so the traffic regulations are still in the private road section. but they dedicated that road to the township under the Condo Services Act years ago, so those regulations need to be moved over into the public street section of the traffic regulations. That's all this does.
And this was initiated by like the president of the homeowner association at the Knoll, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we didn't, this was something they came to us about, we didn't go out looking to do this.
Now you gotta plow that street.
What? I think we do.
No,
don't
we did anyway.
Yeah.
And that's by state law, we had to accept the dedication. In fact, we have to do it even on private condo roads.
All right, so this is what, a first reading, it's the final reading?
This is public hearing.
Public hearing. All right, so anybody up here have any comments on this? Anybody from the public want to comment on the no? Come on up, sir.
Mike Schmidt, Valley Road, Millington. I live across the street from the Knoll, and every morning I walk my dog in that complex. And I could tell you that I see residents getting in their cars in the morning and gunning it up the street. And although I don't have a radar gun on me, in my best estimate, I've seen cars hit 30 miles an hour going up. And so there needs to be some type of enforcement. I remember seeing a sign, two signs actually going down, going up, with radar equipment on it, flashing the speed and the speed limit. And I think it was working for a while, but people are still, driving dangerously on that street.
Well,
So,
the good news now is the police can enforce it. Before they couldn't. So now if somebody's speeding on there, an officer like Officer Crocker in the back can actually pull them over and either give them a warning or a ticket or whatever. Before, he wasn't able to do that. They give
Okay.
a warning, but now they can. So it's actually, this is beneficial for what you want.
Thank you for taking action on this.
Oh, no, you're
It'll
welcome.
save lives.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other members of the public besides Mr. Schmidt? Anybody online, Madam Clerk?
If anybody on Zoom would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand now. I don't see anyone, Mayor.
All right. Seeing none, I'd like the motion to approve this ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Committeeman Lavender?
Yes.
Committeeman Ray?
Yes.
Committeeman Veleza?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Paserchia?
Yes.
Mayor Dorsey?
Yes. All right, so now we're moving on to what's the consent agenda.
Yes.
All right. There are obviously certain things that need to be abstained from. Is there anything that we need to pull out of this consent agenda to discuss more thoroughly or not?
I'd like to pull 22, 308, 309, and 310. And then I also need to abstain on,
We have a bunch of them.
298, 299, probably most of the consent agenda, 300 and 312.
All right, so you want to pull out those three, go ahead.
Well, I think you can leave those in consent agenda, just note Brendan's.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, you want to pull out the other
Yeah,
three.
but the
sorry.
other three, yes, they have to
Yes.
be pulled.
Yeah, they pulled it.
Yeah, so Brandon, you want to discuss them, go ahead.
Do you want to do the consent agenda and then pull those to have
Yeah, I
a
guess we can do
discussion?
that. All right, that makes sense.
So motion to approve consent agenda 22-295 through 22, 312,
307.
and 308, all right, et cetera, with the abstentions that Committeeman Ray just mentioned, and of course, pulling 22-308, 09, and 10.
All right.
Second.
Second? Committeeman Lavender?
Yes.
Committeeman Ray?
Yes.
Committeeman Veleza?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Paserchia?
Yes.
Mayor Dorsey?
Yes. All right, Brendan, go ahead on the other three.
I'm just pointing out to everybody on 22-308, we're raising the not to exceed for our Labour Council to $70,000. And then on 22-309, another law firm that we're using, the not to exceed has been raised to $35,000, which is just in those two law firms alone, we're at $105,000 potentially for the year. It's an unprecedented amount of money that we are allocating here to the legal services, and it's probably not just that's only two of the law firms that we're using. So I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of what we're doing. And then the 2310, the transfer of funds, it's $65,000 has been transferred from the streets and roads salary and wages. So again, this is it seems a staggering amount to me, but and I pulled them out because I'm voting no on them. So.
Well, on salaries and wages, that's excess money that we didn't need to use. So that's why,
Oh,
at
no,
the end of the year, when stuff gets shifted around, that's where it came from. So it's
Oh,
not
yeah, no, no.
taking it from like the
No, no, no.
paving budget or anything
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
Oh, no. I'm not. I know that, Matt. It's just that it's a large amount that's been transferred to the legal budget of
Well,
60,000.
The problem is, when people make complaints and bring things to our attention, we have a duty to investigate it. So as things come up, we have to investigate these claims, because if you don't, then they get worse. So sometimes it sounds expensive now, but if you let it go and ignore it, it's just gonna get better more later. So, and some of these other legal expenses we have for the town are Oprah request, GR Records Council complaints that we have to defend, all kinds of. In fact, you're helping at some of these places. When you do stuff, the lawyers have to review it and they have to bill for it. You know that.
But what do I do?
What? You know what you do or did, and I'm not gonna get into it here, but I'm just telling you.
I don't know what I did.
Oh, you're gonna get into it now.
Well, I'm just saying, Brendan, you are working with people that are actively engaging adverse positions to the town, and obviously the lawyers have to address it.
But again, I don't know what I'm doing other than whatever I'm doing is right for the town.
Well, that's how you say it, but I'm just saying is that at any time an attorney needs to review something, listen to something, see something, as you know, it gets billed. So they get billed, they bill for what they do. They're not here doing it for free. So even when Jack has to do stuff, whether it's not this related, but so there's an extensive Oprah request that requires hours and hours of review for redactions, he's got to bill for that. And that's how he gets paid. That's how I get paid. That's how most lawyers get paid.
So, but how am I responsible for
I didn't say
any
you're
of that?
100% responsible. I'm
I
saying.
hope not. I mean, it's a lot of money, but
I'm saying I've seen stuff that come by me that clearly shows you've taken an adverse position against the township.
I have
Some
not
of these
taken any.
actions.
I have not taken an adverse position against the township. If anything, I've done what I thought is right for the township.
I think that's a matter of opinion.
Well, obviously,
I share
you would.
Matt's opinion 110%.
Well, that's, as you're allowed to do. As you're allowed, it's not actually surprising that that's the position you would take. But
Well,
I'm
You say that as if that's a bad position.
I'm
somehow
telling
in the
you,
wrong.
no. What I'm telling you is, what I have been, anything I've been involved in has always been for the right motives, and it's in the best interest of this town.
Again, that's in your opinion.
Okay, we got that the first time.
That's in your
Vic.
opinion.
Vic, we got that the first time.
Got it, I get it. But,
Okay.
yeah, okay, Honorable Brendan, you got it.
And you have to understand, when attorneys do things, they have to get paid for it.
Okay, it is what it is, guys.
Matt, I practice law. I'm well aware of it.
Maybe some of us know more than you do.
I hope he hires the lawyer because you just defamed him.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, laugh at me. I only practiced law for 42 years.
Okay.
Look, we are privy to a lot of things the public is not, that we cannot discuss.
I know, so why are you discussing it in front of us?
I'm not. I'm just telling you, we are privy to a lot of information the public is not. Do you think, believe me, if I could tell the public what I would like to, I would have done it months ago. But because of the way the law is, privacy, personnel matters, health matters, I'm not permitted to discuss that. None of us are, so we have to sit here and listen.
But Matt, you just did. You just painted me
No, I
as
said you
being
took an
as being
adverse
some
position.
bad. No, you painted me as being a bad actor as far as the town's concerned.
I
You
said
did.
you've taken an
I've
adverse
taken an
position, which
adverse
is
position
true.
to the town. I've not taken an adverse position to the town.
All right, well, like Vic said, that's your opinion.
No, it's obviously your opinion, and you've just made it public, and then you've told everybody that you can't discuss it. So you've thrown something out there which is painting me as a bad actor, and then you're hiding behind, whoa, I really can't
Well,
talk
look,
about it.
if you want to talk about what you did, go ahead.
I don't know what I've done. I
know
really don't know what I've done.
All right. Seeing no more, unless you want to talk about this topic anymore.
No, I'm just, as I say, I think I've said enough, and I think there's obviously some pain points here. I'm pointing out to everybody, this is an unprecedented amount of money that we're spending on lawyers.
So Brendan says no, he don't want to let them have the money.
Correct.
What do you guys say?
Yes.
Let's move on with the show, please.
Thank you,
I got
Joe.
better things to do.
I agree with Joe. So Motion to approve 22, 308, 309, and 310.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All against? Aye. Because basically it is our
Nays?
money.
Nay.
Let's take a roll call for
Yeah,
two
I
reasons.
thought that's what we were
One is
doing, a
it's
roll
gonna
call.
be one vote no, and also 2/3 votes required on the transfer of funds.
Committeeman Lavender?
Yes.
Committeeman Ray?
No.
Committeeman Verleza?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Paserchian?
Yes.
Mayor Dorsey?
Yes. Okay, next one is Resolution 22-13. This is about the ladder truck.
No. Yes.
Yeah, that's where we're next,
Sorry.
22. Yeah, we gotta pull that separated. This one's out. Is there an issue with this one?
No.
Well, I mean, the fact is that you have never authorized the actual purchase. You did a intent to purchase, you authorized an intent to purchase back last year, but you never actually authorized the purchase of the ladder truck. I believe that construction has already begun. We received 25 change orders that were inappropriately signed for already. I don't know what you want to do about that, but the fact is that you've never actually done a resolution authorizing the purchase, so that's what this is.
All right, so what did we allocate? I know we allocated some amount of money for this ladder truck a long time ago.
You agreed to $1.4 million.
Correct.
The estimate that we got was 1.36. 1.36. We're up to what was it, Jack?
It looks like, is this the final figure, 1,362,000?
Yeah, that's the final
Right.
figure.
Right, so we're over by $62,000, which is the change orders. So the fact is that change orders cannot be done without a resolution. Committeeman Ray signed them without having resolutions done. So I believe the way the ordinance was supposed to be, the resolution was supposed to be written was that you're authorizing $1.4 million. However, anything over 1.36 requires a resolution by the governing body.
So what is the
I
final
believe
number
the
then?
CFO, I believe the CFO wrote this, Nancy, and he does, in paragraph 2, say the contract pricing is approved up to $1.4 million with any and all changes be.
Nancy, I think you
Oh,
have
no.
an old one. I think you have an older, that was one of the resolutions that I changed
Oh, I'm sorry.
yesterday. Hold on, let me pull it up.
But just so we can, while we're talking here, we talked about $1.4 million. We had just over 1.3. Whenever we went to the factory and we started to as we figured that we would, when we started to look at other things, other apparatus of similar nature, we came up with some change orders, and that was the extra money. I just want you to know that we've had the present ladder truck for 30 years, and so whenever we're thinking about this ladder truck as we're designing it for a similar length of time, we want to make sure that it meets all the needs of the present and the future, and so that's where the change orders were generated.
What's the latest total figure, Megan?
It's in the ordinances. It's that we have here of 1.36.
$1,360,200.36.
Yeah.
So that is the latest?
Yes.
Is
the
it 36
contract-
cents a problem?
It's the
Yes.
$60,000 in change orders that is the problem, that you didn't have the authority to sign for.
Well, as I say, I take it that was my mistake. We came here, we talked about it, and I thought that we mentioned that there were potential changes, and I was under the impression that we had $1.4 million.
But it's not a blank check. So we didn't have any paperwork from this company until, what, a month ago? So meanwhile, the truck has already begun to be manufactured. You've made $60,000 worth of changes, and we knew nothing about it. So those changes have to be authorized by the township committee.
Okay, and I take it, is that what we're doing right now?
That's up to Jack.
Yeah, I think the way Randy wrote the resolution is we actually are approving $1,360,200.36. He does say pricing's approved up to $1,004,000, but anything beyond the $1,360,000 needs to be approved by the governing body.
So basically what that does is that authorizes the change orders that you already signed for,
date.
but anything to date, but anything further
Right.
from here out
Yep.
would have to be
Yep, I
passed
understand
by
that.
the governing body.
Yep.
Correct, I think that's what it accomplishes.
Yep.
All right. All right, so now it's straightened out, I guess?
I think so.
You guys understand that now? All right, so I guess a motion to approve resolution 22-313. I guess with the change orders, I take it.
So moved.
The change orders to date, yes.
To date,
Yeah.
yes. Now, if he needs more change orders, then he's gotta come back. Got it.
Correct.
Second.
Committeeman Lavender?
Yes.
Committeeman Ray?
Abstain.
Committeeman Verleza?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Paserchia?
Yes.
Mayor Dorsey?
Yes. All right, moving on to liaison reports. That's what, Megan, am I doing right? No?
No. Redevelopment.
Oh,
291.
we're back again on the
Yeah,
redevelopment?
This is actually
This
for
is
the
the
car wash.
resolution.
Oh,
for
okay,
car
so
wash.
I gotta excuse
gotta
myself
excuse
again
yourself.
because the car wash is up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah. Thank you. So 22, for those who are following at home, 22-291, authorizing and approving a redevelopment agreement by and between the Township of Long Hill and Sterling SL Urban Renewal LLC, and in brackets, redeveloper. Now, it's been some time since we discussed this, Jack. Could you give us the context?
Yes, over the course of time, the Township Committee has taken all the steps to make this an area in need of redevelopment. You initially sent it to the Planning Board for its determination as to whether it qualified. The Planning Board determined that it did. You therefore adopted an ordinance declaring it as a redevelopment zone. Thereafter, now the final step is entering into this redevelopment agreement with the developer. So, as a result, as we discussed earlier, if you had passed that other ordinance, or even under the existing zoning ordinance for the business district, this supersedes the zoning. This zoning applies only to the car wash property. And by having a redevelopment agreement, it gives the Township Committee greater control over the aesthetics and the construction of the facility.
Thank you, Jack. So I think at this point, I'd like to, Scott, start on that side. Questions or comments?
No, I defer to Vic.
I want to hear what you have to say.
No, you go first.
Nothing?
No.
Brendan? Is it okay, Vic?
Yeah,
Move on.
I'm
Brendan?
fine.
No, I mean, I don't have any comment other than, this is a study was undertaken. It went to the planning board. It was approved, and this is the next step in the process.
And even after this, if I just may point out, the redeveloper will have to go back to the planning board for site plan approval under the redevelopment agreement as opposed to the zoning ordinance.
Scotty, you ready now?
I have no
What does
comment.
all of this mean in English, please?
That they can build the assisted living facility with township involvement as to aesthetics and the construction of the facility.
And this is,
No 4 stories.
Don't remember what the,
well, actually,
Shot down to 4 stories the last time, that one doesn't count?
well, I mean, I think just what we have to say here is that it's going to be subject to its own zoning, right?
that's correct.
And so that's going to be a discussion between the applicant and the planning board. Joe?
as I recall, it was lower on Valley Road, and then near the back, it got higher, so that aesthetically, it wasn't
Yeah.
visible from Valley Road.
That's right.
Again, English, please.
That the front of the building is lower than the back of the building.
Does it exceed 4 stories at anywhere on the building?
We haven't seen anything yet.
Joe, if you're going to speak, please
I'm sorry,
come to the mic.
nobody asked me to get up and speak. It's just that when the board or the council, whatever you guys are, when you don't agree on things and when they're not forthcoming, it leaves a lot of questions from the public, a lot of uneasiness as to what's going on, okay? I just finished a book on doublespeak, so I'm good at this. We're gonna cancel the 4 stories on that building, but this building, the front's only 3 stories, but the back is 5 stories. That don't count. What is it in English, please? I'm gonna try and calm myself.
I want
I'm
to be
sorry.
clear. I want to be clear. We're not passing an ordinance here. This still has to go back to the planning board. Your
I know.
comments on this will be more appropriately directed to the planning board when this is discussed.
Okay,
So I don't want to turn this into a free...
I apologize for losing my cool. It's just I have very little tolerance to nonsense, and this is what this is. Yes and no, is it gonna be 4 stories? Very simple
We
question.
don't know.
Oh, okay. No sense discussing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I mean, again, this is not open to the public, but since you were kind enough to come up, why don't you come to the mic? That was my bad, not
Sorry,
yours.
Yeah, I also just want to make it clear, I'm not a resident of Long Hill Township. I am the contract purchaser on the car wash lot. I just wanted to clarify, the building is not a 4-story structure. It is 2 stories, it's proposed as 2 stories on Valley and 3 stories beyond. So, you know, I think we're at the point in the process where we're happy to hold community meetings and discuss the project and make sure that there is transparency and that the public is comfortable with it. We worked with the planner and actually a number of these council members here, and the first thing out of their mouth was height. We had to be sensitive to it. So we designed the building. The proposed building is designed with that very much in mind. Again, if there are other concerns, we're happy to continue to talk through it with the public. You know, our design is proposed right now, and we'll work through it with the planning board. The planners, they're professionals.
No, we'll meet the redevelopment ordinance. Didn't you come and make a presentation to the public?
We presented
Before the
to...
township committee?
Yeah, I believe we presented to a number of...
And showed the...
We showed the
renderings.
renderings and the building materials and the architectural style. I'm sorry, I'm talking to both. I mean, I don't mean to talk just to the council, I mean to talk to the room. You know, we were very sensitive. Look, I live a 6-minute drive from the site. I've driven by this site. To your point earlier, you said it's an eyesore. We want to see it redeveloped. We want to see it be something that the town can be proud of. I think right now, I don't think anyone would look at it as a point that they'd want to put forth as an example of the town. So, you know, we're going to continue to work through things with the planning board, and we promise you guys, you know, the end result will be something that everybody in the town will be proud of. So that's...
Thank you much very much for attending. You answered the questions better than we could have. And you triggered my memory. There was a detailed article in the Echo Sentinel, and I remember you guys did a great job on that article. So, I mean, you can, I guess, Google it.
We'll stay till the end of the meeting. We'll stay outside. If anyone wants to speak to us privately, independently, we're happy to answer any questions.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So, at this point, I would look for a motion to pass Resolution 22-291.
So moved.
Second.
Megan?
Committeeman Lavender?
Yes.
Committeeman Ray?
Yes.
Committeeman Verleza?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Paserchia?
Yes.
And Mayor Dorsey's abstaining.
And Mayor Dorsey will be coming back. And I know everybody's at the edge of their seats. Seton Hall's up by 18 with 40, and I haven't been looking until just now, so I was pleasantly surprised. 18 points, 47 seconds left.
All right, now we're at liaison reports?
Yes.
All right. Brendan, you got anything?
Nothing from me.
Thank you. Guy?
Nothing in detail. I just want to let the residents know, we talk about this all the time, but it has been an exceptionally busy period for the first aid squad. And I don't know how they do it. Even Liberty Corner now, I think, has gone to a paid volunteer fire. We see the calls coming in, and now our volunteers are going into Warren, Berkeley Heights, Liberty Corner on a regular basis. One day in particular, 2 weeks ago, they had 11 calls in less than 24 hours. And think about that. Those calls aren't coming at a time when it's convenient. They have to answer the bell when the calls come in. And I cannot thank the first aid squad enough. Captain Carly Snyder and your team, you do an outstanding job, and you do it quietly and humbly, so thank you. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Scott, usually have the most to say.
Yep, we'll start with recreation. Megan? So the new playground at Myersville Ball Field is nearing completion. They're just waiting on one additional piece for the playground, a cargo net climber with 2 baseball bats as poles. And we just got an update that it's expected in the beginning of February, and the footing's further in, so hopefully it can get in pretty quickly. Next, a reminder that adult basketball open play is still open for registrations, and the program will continue until May 4th. It's Thursday night, 7:30 to 9 at Central School. Next, the 3rd Annual Holiday House Business Decorating Contest. The list of entries is now posted on the website and Instagram. And we encourage residents to take a ride around town, find your favorites, stop at Starbucks of Sterling and let them know that you're on your holiday tour, and they'll have a free cake pop for you. Thank you, Starbucks. And we're starting to judge the entries now. There will be a plan to announce our winners next week. And Santa Claus and his elf Rebel will be out to adorn our winners with signs and prizes. Next, our Letters to Santa campaign was a success, and we were able to assist the North Pole by delivering approximately 100 letters so that Santa's elves could send letters back to all the good boys and girls in Long Hill. I don't know if you're on that list.
You looking at the mayor?
No, I've been on that list for
Next.
47 years.
Our cookie decorating contest is still in progress. Send in your entries by this Friday. We've gotten a number of entries so far. We have a lot of talented bakers in this town of all ages. So it looks delicious, Megan. Next, upcoming Red Cross CPR AED class, January 12th, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the First Aid Long Hill, at the Long Hill First Aid Squad. Register on Community Pass. Class size is very limited, so do not delay. Next, Paper Collage Art Workshop with local artist Danielle Ariama D'Amico, Tuesday, January 24th, 6:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. at the Millington Schoolhouse. Register on Community Pass. Next, Snowmen Bingo virtually. Play as a family. Wednesday, January 11th, 6 p.m. Prizes for each family winning 1 of 5 games. Next, Long Hill Winter Landscapes Photography Contest. I'm looking at you, Chuck. More information on the website, including the registration forms, free entry for all Long Hill residents. We ran this last year, and you will see many of the winning photographs on our calendar this year. I just got my calendar, did you?
Yeah,
It's very good. It was very good. And, hopefully everybody's received that. And then lastly, just a reminder to follow us on Instagram for all the latest programming news. Thanks. And let's move forward. Police liaison report. I spoke to officer in charge, Lieutenant Ciambrello today. No major incidents to report. There was an incident on Division and Valley with a Verizon fiber being down. It closed the road, but that was cleaned up. She did say, please visit the PBA website. There is a toy collection drive for Thursday. In terms of equipment operational, all systems are go, no problems. She is starting on a process of regaining accreditation. The current forecast is we may have it back within 12 months, but that is subject to change. There is several interviews going on. They've had ads out on Facebook and in the papers to hire new officers. That's ongoing. So hopefully they make some progress there. And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vic, you got anything?
Nothing to report?
All right, let's see. I thank Colette Armenti because she got the calendar out and ready, so they got out obviously a couple weeks early. This will dovetail into the DPW report. Is check the new calendar when it comes out. Al, did the bulk days change or anything?
No, it's still the same week.
Okay, so the bulk weeks, they're still the same, but please check the new calendar for January going forward for 2023, so everybody's on the same page. The holiday lighting they put up a couple weeks ago looks great. They're doing the final leaf pickup around the township properties. They're always doing tree trimming along the roads. The snow equipment, hopefully they don't need to use it, is primed and ready to go. They're installing new playground mulch at Myersville, Cantor, and the lake. They're starting that tomorrow, I believe. The drainage work on Main Avenue is still going. The people on Northfield Road have had some issues with the road due to the work on there. One reason that project isn't done yet is because they're waiting for a permit from New Jersey Transit to go underneath the tracks, and they asked for that months ago, and New Jersey Transit hasn't done anything. So that's one reason, that's probably the main reason why the project didn't finish. They are going to start repaving Northfield, or at least to correct it a little bit, from Clover Hill to Northfield. It's scheduled for tomorrow morning pending the weather, so there might be some delays there. And they're also working with the county for scheduling Long Hill Road to fix that up too. The road will get properly paved in the spring, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. So it's like a stopgap just to smooth it out a little bit, but it's going to get properly resurfaced in the spring when the weather's nicer. Don't forget to check the DPW Facebook page and like them so you can get announcements. It's a one-way page. It's very good for announcements. Please use the compost drop-off. Now with holiday parties and things like that, there's 2 big garbage cans there for compost. They come, I think, on Thursdays, and all the food stuff gets recycled and used in other places. We don't forget the styrofoam. They're getting gifts and presents. Please bring the styrofoam down to DPW. You're cooking for the holidays. We have the cooking oil depository. It's all free. Tin and aluminum cans. Please bring them down to DPW because Jeff Wanamaker from Sterling Fire Department uses them, brings them, scraps them, and takes the money and donates to the St. Barnabas Burn Center, and usually does that about 4 or 5 times a year. So through our residents and Jeff Wanamaker, we usually donate probably over $1,000 to the burn unit at St. Barnabas, so it's a good cause. What else would be a recycling? We basically recycle a lot of things, electronics, so please check it out or check out the DPW page. We're really ahead of the game with recycling around other towns, so please take advantage of it. And that's basically the DPW report. Oh, and finally, 12 Baskets, the food pantry. This Friday, from 7 to 5, they're collecting hams, turkey breasts, and obviously general food supplies too. I mean, they get a big surge around Thanksgiving and the holidays, but this is a problem that presents itself throughout the year. So just keep that in mind. If you have any surplus canned goods or non-perishable goods, you can drop them off at All Saints Church, you can drop them off at St. Vincent's, and they will go to where people need them the most. So that's this Friday, 7 to 5. They're doing a turkey and ham collection, but obviously you have other items you want to bring, you can drop them off anytime. So that's it for the liaison reports, except for the administrator's report.
Actually, I don't know if you mentioned it for the fire.
No, go
ahead. Just telling everybody not to be alarmed this weekend,
yes.
that you'll hear a lot of sirens and see a lot of lights in the streets. So both Sterling and Millington will be doing their Fire Claus Santa Claus deliveries on Saturday, and then again Sterling is repeating it on Sunday. So a very happy time for all.
All right. And the administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Work on Main Avenue is complete, with the exception of light poles, which have been delayed due to production problems. But we hope they'll be here before the end of the year. Benches, as I'd mentioned previously, will be installed in the spring. The PSE&G gas main replacement work on Mountain Avenue continues. It should be done by hopefully about mid-January, but that depends on weather. The road will be fully closed from about 8:30 to between 4 and 5:30 every day. PSE&G will repave the road in the early spring when they're done. And parking permit sale happened earlier this month. Gillette, 58 were sold out of 140, which leaves 82. 10 were sold in Sterling, which leaves 55 of a total of 65. And Millington, 4 were sold, which leaves 146 out of 150.
I know. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, it does pick up as the year goes on. You know, we had higher numbers last year. Last year we had 105 out of 140 in Gillette, 28 out of 65 in Sterling, and 45 out of 150 in Millington. Obviously still feeling the effects of the pandemic, but permits are available if people want them. We also have daily permits at all 3 lots. Finally, our recycling company is going to start putting out notices that, I don't know if you can see, that look like this. It says no plastic bags. As we've been saying for a really long time, do not put plastic bags in your recycling. They're not, they jam up the machines. They're not allowed. The MUA, who is our recycler, has said that if they see plastic bags in your recycling, they're not going to take your recycling for that week. And you'll get this notice on your can, and then you'll have to put it back and put it out at your next regularly scheduled pickup. So please do not use plastic bags. That's the end of my report.
All right, let's see. There's no discussion items. Under old new business, Ben Lindeman from the zoning board had to resign because he lived on Chestnut Street, and him and his wife wanted to stay in town, but they couldn't find a house. So unfortunately, Ben moved over to Basking Ridge. So thank Ben for his service. And then when we do the reorg meeting, we'll just reappoint. Oh, he was an alternate, so somebody will move up and reappoint somebody else. So Ben, thank you for your service. And Ben actually was a land use attorney, so he's a very good person to have on the board. Then we go to Township Committee appointments. Anna Ruggalo, we're going to appoint her to the, did we have to vote on this, Jack?
Yeah, the alternate number one.
Okay.
Tax committee appoints alternate members, mayor appoints regular members.
Okay, so Anna Ruggalo, we'll nominate her to appoint her as the alternate number one in the Environmental Commission with the term expiring in December 31st, 2023. So I do this voice vote or?
Voice vote's fine.
Okay, is any, all in favor of appointing
to
Ms.
make a
Ruggalo?
motion.
Motion to appoint Ms. Ruggalo to the alternate to the Environmental Commission.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Megan.
All in favor?
Oh,
Aye.
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 Any nays?
Congratulations, Ms. Ruggalo. All right, under the announcements, there might be more, because I know Scott had a bunch. There's a free rabies clinic January 14th at the Berners Township Public Works from 10 to 12. Bring your dogs and cats. It's free, so we're good to go. Guy, do you have any announcements?
What's that, Mr. Mayor?
Do you have any announcements?
None,
Be
Mr.
more
Mayor.
comfortable. All right. The next meeting, our next meeting is December 28th. It's at 8:30, what's it, 8:30 in the morning?
Yep.
Yeah, it's at 8:30 in the morning. So, but it is December 28th, so the week after Christmas.
So we skipped over new business.
Oh, sorry.
Matt, the only thing, I mean, we all have a package here. It was a complaint that we received from
I don't know, can we talk
a
about
resident.
that in?
No, I mean, I'm just talking
Oh.
about, I'm not talking about the particular
Oh,
incident, just more
well,
in
I can tell you
general
this,
terms.
summonses were issued today.
Okay, excellent.
I know what you wanted to know.
Okay, that was.
All right,
From two different
from
departments.
two different departments.
Excellent.
So,
Thank
yeah,
you.
that's being dealt with.
Okay,
You could tell I'm sure the resident will know, but just so you want to contact your person, you can tell them.
sure.
All right. All right, so now we're on to,
we're
public
not
session,
done yet.
yes.
Public, yeah.
Yes, so now we have the public portion. You're limited to 3 minutes, one time each. And you can, we're not here to debate you or argue with you, but you have 3 minutes to basically voice your concerns or opinions.
Good evening. Charles Renowitz, Millington. As we have 4 attorneys in front of me here tonight, let me focus on facts first and then some questions. Fact number 1. A draft MR report, the police study, was transmitted to Mayor Dorsey via email on October 21st at 8:59 a.m. Fact 2. Comments on the draft MR study conveyed to MRI via Zoom on October 26th at 8:15 a.m. by Mayor Dorsey, Township Commander Lavender, and Township Administrator. Fact 4. Township Committee meeting on October 26th. In open public session, Charles Renowitz asked Mayor Dorsey, quote, "Do you have a draft copy of the MR report?" End quote. Answer by Mayor Dorsey, quote, "No, I do not have the draft. We expect an update from MRI in the next few weeks." End quote. The public can watch starting about minute 54 of that meeting for these facts. Now the questions. Question 1. Mayor Dorsey, why did you say untruths/lies to me and the listening residents about not having the draft report at the Township Committee meeting on October 26th and having the draft report since October 21st and you reviewed the draft report with MRI on the morning of the Township Committee meeting, the 26th. Question 2. Mayor Dorsey, what other untruths and lies have you told the public? Question 3. Besides yourself, Township Committee Member Lavender, Township Administrator, and Township Attorney, who else has seen the MR report? Question 4. Mayor Dorsey, what have you learned from the MRI study since the final version from November 1st, 2022, that will help you better manage the police department? Question 5. You've had the final MR report study for 44 days. When will the taxpayers who paid $30,000 for the study see the report? 44 days. Question 6. When will the transmission and media issues be resolved in this building?
Wait, would you say that? I didn't see the last one.
Okay, when will the transmission/media issues in this building be resolved? Go ahead. I'm ahead of schedule.
I know you
6
are.
seconds.
Okay. With the transmission, you talking about the meeting transition?
The Zoom, the
Yes.
TV,
Okay, I just wanted to make
combined.
sure. It's working. As you know, it's a work in progress. I know you had an issue with it last night.
We did.
I wasn't aware of it. That's fixed now. So whatever it was, that's addressed.
So the media is fixed now, and we can Zoom, no transmission problems.
Wow.
Oh, it's all fixed.
We hope. I mean, it sounds like I haven't gotten any emails tonight that it's not working from outside the audience. So hopefully it's working tonight, and hopefully it continues to work. But we thought that last time, something happened, that line went down, that could have affected your transmission, because I know other parts of town could hear it the other day, last night. Let's see. How many lies have I told? I don't know, but as my nose grows, you can probably figure it out. That's one. Who else has seen?
No, for the first question.
I'm addressing all your questions. I'm not going to tell you. Who else has seen the report?
Right.
The people on the committee have recently seen it.
Have you seen it, Dorsey, Mr. Ray?
No.
He's conflicted out. The officer.
The report's done.
What exactly? But he's conflicted out. He can see it with the rest of the public. The officer in charge, Lieutenant Trimble and Lieutenant Marcheski, have both seen the report.
Both lieutenants have seen the report.
That's correct.
What about the attorneys?
What attorneys?
The labor attorneys.
I don't know if the labor attorneys have seen it. I'm not exactly sure. I know Mr. Pigeon obviously saw the redactions.
I've seen it, Labor Council has seen it.
Yes,
I know.
one the labor council has seen it. I don't know exactly who has seen it in there. Obviously, it's a confidential report.
We don't know who's seen the report?
Sorry, I've been correct.
Wait, Nancy, who's seen it?
All of the attorneys involved.
And they would be.
All the attorneys involved with the township now have seen it.
How many we got?
It's hard to keep
Too
track.
many.
How many attorneys have seen the report?
Let's see.
At least-
Mr.
at least-
Pigeon saw it. I'll tell you. Mr. Pigeon saw it. Mr. Pruzanowski have seen it. Did Ms. Hetfield see it?
I don't know if
No,
she
she
saw it.
hasn't.
No,
but-
she has
but,
not seen it.
Parikh.
And Ms. Parikh has seen it.
So everybody's seen it that's facing me except for Committeeman Ray. Is that correct?
That's correct. All right, so let's see. The final version, you're correct, is done and will be released online tomorrow or Friday. I promise you that. To the public.
Wait a minute, you're telling the truth now.
I am telling the truth.
It's tomorrow or Friday.
That's correct. It will be published online for everybody to see that wants to look at it. For free, no Oprah request.
And are we redacting it or?
I will answer that question next. The redactions that are done in this report, the only section that's really redacted in full is about the security at the police station for obvious reasons. The public doesn't see that for obvious reasons. And throughout the other, I don't know how many pages, 70-something pages, there might be maybe 4 lines total redacted out of the 70-something pages, and they're in random parts. So basically, aside from the security version, the security portion, the public's going to see basically 99% of the report. So.
Okay. Other questions you haven't answered?
Let's see. Not having the final draft, I don't remember saying that, but I will take your word for it.
You can listen to the tape.
I'm not
Minute 54.
I'm not. Look, I know what you're saying, and I don't remember saying it, but I'm sure you're telling the truth right now.
You said it.
Okay,
Minute 54.
I will own that. Then I said that.
But the
and I
issue is
answered who
why?
else saw
Why
it.
did you say it if you had it for
What?
5 days?
I don't know. Look, I will go back and review it, and then maybe I can answer it. Sitting here now, 40-something days later, I don't have an answer for you. But if you said I said it, I'm not going to argue with you.
You said it.
Okay, I said it.
All right, now, what have you learned
Well,
to
let's
managing the police department?
Well, we've already, Scott and I both talked to both lieutenants in the last couple of days since they read it. I'm not going to get into what we've discussed about it.
Just in general, tell me what you've learned, how to manage the department.
Well, we learned some of the deficiencies, some of the things that need to be improved, those kind of things. And when you see the report, you can talk about it. But like I said,
I want to know what you have learned for you to better
let's
manage
see.
that department.
I learned why we didn't get accredited. I learned why the radios failed. I learned about staffing issues and those kind of things, yes. And that we need to keep, and the committee itself needs to keep a tighter leash on what goes on down there. Or at least a little more oversight than we had for the past God knows how many years. And that's why a lot of the problems occurred, because there was no oversight going on. And you can read it when it comes out online. You could see the same thing I saw, aside from the security.
I can't wait. It's 44 days, so tomorrow's 45, Friday's 46, right?
But it will be. You don't need to open it. It is going on.
I already opened it and I've filed a complaint.
Yes, but the reason why it couldn't, there's a reason why it wasn't released, and as Mr. Pidgeot says, for deliberative purposes, and that's why it wasn't released. So if you wanna go
We'll
to the
settle that with
GRC,
mediation.
Yes, knock yourself out.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right.
Good evening. I'm a bit tall for this mic, my apologies.
You could take it out if you
can
want.
No, you can take it off the stand. There you go.
I'll do this. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Zaid Hussein, and I'm the Outreach Coordinator at CARE New Jersey, the Jersey chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations. CARE is America's largest and oldest Muslim civil rights and advocacy group. Our mission is to enhance understanding of Islam, encourage dialogue, protect civil liberties, empower American Muslims, and build coalitions that promote justice and mutual understanding. We spend a good majority of our day and our week at our workplace. It should be a healthy and welcoming environment, but obviously that's not the case when you are subject to repeated instances of ridicule and harassment on the basis of your religious and ethnic background. And when this is happening, especially at the hands of those in positions of power and authority, it must be unequivocally condemned and called out, and that's why I am here. I am respectfully calling your attention to the case of Police Chief Ahmed Naga. At CARE NJ, we are deeply disturbed and disappointed at the anti-Muslim bigotry that New Jersey's first ever Muslim chief of police allegedly faced at the hands of Long Hill Township officials. To question whether the chief of police had ties to the Taliban at a 9/11 memorial service, no less, is irreprehensible. And then to double down by following with another comment offending the chief's ethnic background is truly shocking and unacceptable by any means. Learning that the chief was also referred to by names other than his own as a tool of mockery, and that slurs were hurled at him on a regular basis has shaken our Muslim community to the core and caused grave concerns. As I said earlier, that is unacceptable and totally irreprehensible. Seeing that Long Hill Township has placed Chief Naga on leave just weeks after he filed court papers alleging discrimination instead of redressing his complaints has left us with no choice but to launch our own investigation into Chief's claims. And we will also be reaching out to the Department of Justice and the New Jersey Attorney General's office, both of whom we've worked with in the past and have taken our reported incidents of discrimination seriously. Our goal is simple: to ensure that Muslims in Long Hill Township and surrounding areas feel safe and comfortable in their skin, and that they are not subject to discrimination in any environment, whether at school or whether at work or school, on the basis of their religion or ethnic background. As professionals yourselves, I'm sure you can empathize with a person's desire to feel welcome in their workplace. Sadly, this was not Chief Naga's experience, but we are hopeful that other Muslims who follow in Chief Naga's steps and rise to the position of police chief do not endure a similar experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hussein.
Thank you.
Mark DiGiovanni, Millington. So I wanted to address the article that I read yesterday in the Echo Sentinel that was written with regards to the reasons, actually the transparency for the first time as to why you guys made the decision to get rid of Chief Naga or put him on leave. And so just for those who haven't read it, I think just summarize it, right? It was one, hey, he's the only chief to need to use a consultant, right? No other chiefs before that have used a consultancy, and he still couldn't get the job done, right? Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then he deliberately stalled the MRI, right, component, right? He delayed it. That's your other statement.
Correct.
And then the ask from MRI was minimal. There wasn't a heavy load to lift. He should have been able to do this very quickly. And the last, and that was the last, right? So those are the primaries that we said. Those were part of the reason why. And when I look at these statements, I'm shocked, because just hearing what Chuck said about the timelines that you said, once again, you've lied. Rogers Group has been used twice now. For Chief Mazzio, or Mazzi, I believe his previous name was, used Rogers. Chief Naga was not the first one. You cannot say you don't know. You guys are the ones that put that information out there. You are the ones that reviewed it. So you make statements in the public stating that this guy has done this. And so basically, on false premises, you've now punished a police chief off of information that's incorrect. Why does an individual like me, who spends zero time during my week doing this stuff, know this, but you guys don't?
Mark.
No, there's no mark. It's either
your name,
you're
isn't it?
lying or you are inept. Done.
Okay,
You are
thank you.
inept at your job. Plain and simple. It's infuriating to hear that, because it was literally, hey, this is the reason why this is happening, and he did a bad job. I don't care what your reasonings are. Have facts, and don't sit there and smear the guy with false information so people think it's true just because it's written. The second thing is, around these delays, it took you 44 days. You haven't even put up the actual report yet. Chief Naga was requested on July 7th to turn over and provide documentation. Barely a month later, he actually got it completed. The guy has a command to worry about. He doesn't have half the staff available to him with the experience that they had before to do these things that they've done in the past. He's getting hammered with OPA requests like you guys said, which he has to respond to within 7 days. And then we've got 30 days of an educational study. He delayed a process. How important is this study? You said that it was meant for education so you could learn more about this. That was your statement, which I just don't understand. The next part was, at any point, let me finish, okay, please. At any point, did the chief request an extension to Prasnowski? Because you guys have talked to both lieutenants now regularly, it seems like. You won't even communicate with Chief Naga. He can only communicate through Prasnowski. That's interesting as well. Did he ever request an extension? Because, hey, listen, I can't meet the timelines that you have? Or did he just say, no, I'm not doing it? We can Oprah those if you want, and we'll Oprah them, and I'll get that information, and I'm going to show you exactly what he did do. I mean, can you not understand why this is infuriating for people? Right? I have no personal care in the world. I have no tie to Chief Naga before I moved to this town. I don't care for the individual in any way other than I know him as my chief. But if anyone was to do this stuff that you guys are doing to anybody, I would stand up for you. This is wrong. And you sit here and look like, oh, I'm surprised, or you're indignant that we could accuse you of these things. You're lying consistently. We now have a policeman in here. What happened to the risk? Can you tell me? In your great evaluation of risk and the threats that we've been under and why we've been at Zoom for the last month, what a risk was averted? Was there a request? Was there a threat? Was there a threat made to anybody? No, there wasn't. You know there wasn't. Was there a police report filed against them? No, there wasn't. It was your unilateral decision to do it. Done. I mean, at this point, I don't know what else to say to you guys. I'm so disappointed and ashamed. And you all should be too. This is a disgrace of leadership.
Thank you for your kind words. Appreciate that.
Yeah, in that time span, there were 75 OPA requests made to the township that Megan handled by herself. I believe there were 7 that were made to the police department in that time frame. Mr. Ferradino.
Usually I hear the ratcheting of the handcuffs after I'm called that. Thank you very much. Joe Ferrandino, 623 Chestnut Street. Look, I don't know what's going on, and I refuse to make a decision one way or another, but I could tell you what the optics say. The optics don't look good for this town and for this township committee. First of all, that display of disunity amongst the people on the council, that there should have been settled in that room in the back. As a person who belongs to this town, never ever should anybody have to witness that from the people that are supposedly running this town. Secondly, the Zoom meetings and the report and whatnot, the optics are witch hunt, character assassination. From what I watched on the TV while I was sitting here about the one-sided report on Chief Naga, throwing him out before he gets a chance to defend himself. And he may be wrong, I don't know, but I'll never get to know. And I'll tell you what it looks like. The optics are not good. Plus, being Italian and a white Christian male and having to be labeled a racist and a white supremacist when my 2 paisans are the ones that have supposedly made these remarks about
Allegedly.
I said allegedly. Did I say allegedly?
That's the one word he used when he came up here that was accurate. Allegedly.
Did I say allegedly? Did I say allegedly? Okay, I did. These were remarks made about him that you're posting your side of the story. It looks like character assassination, and it may not be, but you're not doing anything to make this go away. What do they say? Sunshine is the greatest disinfectant. The minute you knew what was going on, you should have brought it to the townspeople instead of all this cloak and dagger, redactment, and secrecy. It doesn't look good for you guys. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Ms. Hodges.
Yes, sir. As I heard tonight, you are proposing greater oversight of the police department. And I'd like to read, again, not to belabor the point, but ordinance 504-22. Now, therefore, be it ordained by the Township Committee of the Township of Long Hill in the County of Morris, the State of New Jersey, that Chapter 3 of the Township Code entitled Police Regulations is hereby amended as follows. Police regulations, and you're not going to run this by the Chief of Police? You're saying you want more oversight. You want to be able to know what's going on with the police department, and yet you write an ordinance and you don't run it by the police? I'm just dumbfounded about that. Legally, you don't have to. You already told me that. It's the right thing to do, even if it's just a courtesy. By a show of hands, I don't want any discussion on this. I sent each of you an email on Monday night. The title was A Small Step, and it talked about inclusiveness. May I have a show of hands who received it and who has read it? Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
And
Thank you.
Can I encourage the rest of you to please read it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening all, Frank Liberato, Heritage Road, Millington. Couple items. To answer the issue about legal bills regarding GRC, the only reason why anyone or any of us file with the GRC is when we feel something is heavy-handedly redacted or deliberative when it may not be. And that's the only reason why you end up there. So if there's less redaction, and maybe the deliberative is curtailed when it can be, as it was in a recent instance when it went to the GRC, you know, unfortunately, you are correct. That does incur legal bills, but it's in the interest of transparency. The other thing I wanted to talk about is it a general policy of the committee in dealing with previous chiefs, previous department heads, to utilize a labor attorney as the central point of communication between that department head, as was done with the chief during this year? Because it seems through Oprah requests and so on, you know, that was basically the main communication point. Is that a general practice that's been done in the past with other department heads? You know, using a labor attorney as the conduit for communication, as opposed to, you know, having your department meetings dealing with the department head directly?
That's the choice we used this time to deal with the situation, and that's what we're sticking with. And that's, we made, in my opinion, we made the right choice, and
It's a very expensive choice when
I
things could be
understand.
resolved other ways, I would hope.
If we wouldn't, put it this way, we wouldn't have used legal counsel unless we needed to. I'll leave it at that.
And what drove you to use legal counsel as opposed to other means?
That's personnel issues that I can't get into.
So if another department head, recreation, public works, any other entity, is not following your directions 100%, then your fallback method is to use the labor attorney as the conduit to get things done your way?
We're not the appropriate authority for the other play town, and I'm not gonna play speculation games with you.
So, as the appropriate authority, if you're directing the chief of police to do something, right, through your proper channels, if that is in violation of Title 40, or in violation of an AG guideline, or a prosecutor's office guideline, or some type of guideline, and that chief of police, whether it's this town or another town, is deciding not to, you know, turn things over, or whatever the case is, what you're asking them to do, hypothetical. They're not entitled to say to you, hey, you know, we're not doing X, Y, and Z, and here's why. So basically, you're setting a precedence for other towns that if the chief of police doesn't walk the walk and do everything exactly your way, that, you know, any other town can, in essence, put the chief on leave. Because if you don't think other towns, other agencies are watching, this is really spread outside this community. I don't know if you realize that. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. But within the law enforcement community, people that I talk to around the state, there's a lot of people watching and wondering what's going on here. But I'll leave it at that. You answered the questions that I asked. Based on the article that was in NJ.com about when the chief was put on leave and the conditions where he's not allowed in any of the public buildings, he's basically being treated like a criminal. And there was a fitness for duty requirement. Has he met all those requirements so he can be reinstated into his position? that
Those
were
are issues,
requested?
again, they're personnel issues we cannot discuss in public. They involve mental health or health issues and personnel issues that we're not allowed to talk about.
But you gave an interview to the Echo, which was about personnel issues, so...
No, it wasn't. What I talked about was public knowledge.
So the fitness for duty being sent for was public knowledge, was in NJ.com.
I didn't put in NJ.com.
But that's public knowledge.
I'm not gonna
It's in
argue
the
with
article.
you,
I can
Frank.
pull it up if you like to look
I
at it.
read the article. I know what it
Oh,
said.
so you did read it?
I read the article, sure.
Okay, so you're saying that's not true, what was in it?
I didn't say that. What I'm saying is it's personal health. I cannot go in and talk to people. I cannot publicize health issues of township employees. You're not allowed to, correct, Jack?
That's correct.
So I cannot get into it. If NJ.com, we didn't call the paper and publish that information. That wasn't us. And we can't publish it. We can't discuss it. The article, the timeline on that article was accurate, but those are things we're not permitted to discuss.
So at this point in time, you have no answer on what the game plan is as far as what you intend to do, as far as with manage. So right now, there's an officer in charge, I guess?
Correct.
is how it's run?
Yes, Lieutenant Chamberlain is running the department right now.
So the way I read it, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, is based on what was in the article in the Echo and what was in NJ.com, this seems to be administrative issues, basically, as the appropriate authority. Is that a correct statement?
I cannot get into its process. I didn't write either article. I didn't write
But
either
you gave
article.
an interview to the Echo, so I
I gave
assume
her,
they
she
quoted
asked me
you
a question, I
correctly.
answered it. I did not write the article. None of us wrote the Star Ledger article. In fact, none of us even contacted the Star Ledger. That was initiated by his attorney, I believe. So what was in the Star Ledger went from Mr. Toscano to the Star Ledger. As to Ms. Zanchilli's article, from reading it, it appears she Oprah'd information, and that's where she got the information for her article.
So in essence, basically, as the appropriate authority, you could, in essence, have the department head, i.e. chief, on administrative leave indefinitely with an officer in charge until you deem it's time to do something. So basically, you could stay in the position you're in for a while, and we continue to rack up legal bills.
I can't answer that question. I cannot answer that question because it's like I said, it's personnel matters that we can't discuss in public.
Well, I appreciate your willingness to attempt to try to answer the questions. Thank you.
Anytime. Mr. Groskopf.
Tom Groskopf, Gillette. Now for all that levity, something very serious. I sent you all an email last week about Hickory Tavern Road. Probably about 6-8 months ago, it was revealed here that there's a speed limit sign of 15 miles an hour that is errant. I don't think that road is actually limited to 15 miles an hour. I think, Scott, you actually pulled it up on Google Maps or something. The picture looks like that. I'm just wondering if anybody's looked into it, whether the sign is, if it's correct.
Is there a speed limit sign on that road that says 15 miles an hour?
He's got a picture.
There you go.
Now, if it's correct, it's correct. But everybody I remember that night was saying, no, that didn't make sense.
But I don't know that this refers to the entire road. I think it's because I know exactly where it is.
Oh, yes.
You see signs that are reduced in a lot of locations, not just Long Hill, everywhere, just because it's around a bend. This is around a sharp bend there and limited sight.
Oh, and a peak. I'm
I
not
don't
saying
think
it's
that-
not dangerous, but
Jack,
usually
I
those
don't
are
think-
yellow signs.
Hold on a second. I don't think Hickory Tavern Road is 15 miles an hour. I
No,
think it's 25.
You're right, it's probably at the curve.
It's just, this is
But the
just
cur-
in that
but-
one location.
But when it's a warning, it's orange or yellow, whatever you want to call it. Amber.
Well, there's an orange, limited sight
No,
distance.
look below.
No, no,
It's
that's a
the
white
speed limit
sign.
sign is white. The white signs
The
are
white
actually
sign means
posted
reduce
signs.
speed to that limit. The yellow sign's a recommendation.
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I believe in conspiracy, but I believe that somebody might have put that up, wanting to keep traffic lower, and it may or may not be
A legal sign.
municipal
There's
sign.
no local ordinance for speed limits on Hickory Tavern Road, so it's just subject to the state standards
Which is
for
25.
residential zones.
So then that sign should be taken down.
I don't know.
That's not
I
the speed
defer to
limit of the road, it
attorney.
shouldn't be there. I'm just trying to avoid somebody getting a ticket that shouldn't get it.
Well, if they do, it can't be enforced, the judge will throw it out.
Waste of the officer's
Yeah,
time,
I'm
waste
not
of going to
disagreeing with
court.
you.
Oy.
I'm-
Just trying to help the town.
Yeah,
That's
no.
all. That's
It
me.
should be a warning sign.
Al's got a comment.
Ally.
White.
So it's white, Al. It's yellow, the warning
Yeah,
sign. the speed
Tom, why
limit's
don't you give
white.
it to Al? Sorry, I should have gotten up. My bad.
I don't know, I'm trying to figure it out myself. I don't know what your point is, but
My point is if it's not a legitimate sign, it should be removed.
Right.
Oh, all right.
Fair enough.
Saving any townsperson or visitor.
So it's not the correct sign, we're in
Doesn't
agreement?
sound like it from what I've heard.
So if it's not, we should either replace it with the correct sign or remove it.
Correct.
I believe what we should do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
Oh,
Just
thank
trying to
you.
help.
Valid point.
Okay.
All our speed limit signs are white, so I don't know what the issue is.
It's not a valid speed limit.
Yeah, it should be 25.
None of the site distance go at that speed, because that's all its recommendation.
Yeah,
But that's not recommendation, that's a speed limit. Recommendations are the orange signs.
Right.
So,
I would suggest leave it at that location, but that's.
ooh, now we got conflicting reports.
well, I don't know, we change it to orange instead of white. What? Oh, yeah, Mark, we have our engineer. Mark, do you know anything about this? Not this specific sign. You can come up. If you know, I don't know if you do know.
I think orange moved into construction.
I can't speak specifically to that sign location. What I can tell you is that if it's an advisory speed sign, it should be yellow as a warning sign. Typically, like you would see a curve arrow or something, would be a yellow background. So, if in fact that speed limit sign is intended to be tied to the alignment of the roadway, then I would recommend that I'll take a look at it in detail. But it can be, it should be changed to an advisory speed sign.
So change it to a yellow sign instead of a white sign.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, fair enough.
It would apply just to that limited condition.
All right, fair enough. Thank you, Mark.
I'll make a note. Good.
All right, so,
Thank you all.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Al, when you get a chance, I put a bunch of 100 other things you guys got. Yeah, I mean, use the order, and we'll just switch it out to orange, I guess, or yellow, whatever color it is. Thank you. Anybody else from the public in person before we go to the Zoom people? All right, anybody on Zoom, Madam Clerk?
Anybody on Zoom would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand now. There's a Gary Pratt that would like to speak.
That's fine.
The first thing I'd like to say is, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The first thing is, I have a simple request. Please don't refer to us by having in front of our names. We are not a thing, we are people. Those are our names. You know that we're people. Please don't say a Gary Pratt. It's, I find it insulting.
I apologize.
That's okay. I figured you probably didn't realize you were doing it, but, so I have a question about why are there so few liaison reports? First of all, I know that we have hardworking employees in our township. We have hardworking volunteers who are part of our boards and committees, and yet there are at least a couple of committee members who don't ever have anything to report. I think there's some kind of disconnect there, and so I'd like to see more effort put into committee members making a connection with the organizations that they are the liaison to. The other thing that why that concerns me is that with the time limit for public comment, if there are things that you know that are of interest to residents, i.e. the MRI report and things like that, and yet it's not brought up by the committee, it's left to the residents to bring it up. I know at a previous meeting, there was a question about the cell tower. Now, you know, that should have been something that was told to us by the committee member. Instead, a member of the public had to take time to ask that question, and with the time counting against us, so to speak. So again, in the interest of transparency, which at least we residents want, You know, I think that should be something that's worked on. The next thing that I find very troubling is the fact that, and I've mentioned this several times before, and I mean, you know, if the answer is, well, we don't care, then fine, we'll have to live with that. But I have a very hard time understanding why the responses that residents get to their questions are, and obviously this is subjective on my part, but I find the answers to be adversarial, I find them to be condescending, I find them to be sarcastic. I'll call one out. It's not appropriate for Mr. Veleza to say thank you for your kind words. That's not helpful. That's obviously very unprofessional. So, I mean, and this seems to come up time and time again. So I would like to ask, you know, can there be some attempts? You know, we have the right to ask questions. And I don't think we should get, you know, if you don't like our questions, I don't think that should give you the reason to be anything other than professional with us. I would like to know if you agree with that, or if you want to be candid, and if you think this is true, then tell me you don't care.
I happen to agree with you, Mr. Pratt, but when someone comes up and raises their voice and calls you a liar and an incompetent, I thought I was kind of kind. That's just my opinion. Well, I'm not a liar. Did I just get called a liar?
Let it go.
Well, you didn't get called that by me.
No, Mr. Pratt.
No, not at all, Mr. Pratt.
I'm just saying that, you know, what I think, you know, I think right now, obviously, there's a lot of pent-up frustration, anger, whatever, on this, from the perspective of, you know, township committee members, residents, everybody. But all of that, what frustrates me is that I have heard people who, in my opinion, spoke, you know, I mean, I'm sure you hear the way I try to talk, and I struggle with, you know, trying to stay calm and be respectful, and I know it's not easy. But on the other hand, you know, I'm just going to ask, in the immortal words of Rodney King, can we all just get along? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt.
Thank you.
Anybody else with their hand up? Madam Clerk.
If there's anybody else on Zoom that would like to speak, please raise your hand now. I don't see anyone, Mayor.
Thank you. Would we have to go to, we have to go back to exec session with no further action? Yes. So a motion to adjourn to exec session.
So moved.
With no further action.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to all.
Shut off the mics, please.
Yeah.